welcome in. Happy Thursday. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight is Thursday, August the 2nd. It's Allison's birthday today.
Oh, okay.
All right. I want to welcome all of you in to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's a very special night for me because I have a very special guest in the studio. But before we go to our guest, I want to, as usual, welcome all of our listeners into Knowledge is Power and encourage those of you who are out in traffic to always be careful. Put the cell phone down. You are allowed to turn the radio up. Keep both hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road so that you might arrive home safely to those who are eagerly anticipating your arrival. With a family that's already home and about to sit down for the evening meal, we definitely encourage you to turn the radio up so that the young people might have an opportunity to listen in, especially tonight because we have a very rare treat for the young people. But as always, we want our young people to be able to listen and participate in what I like to call grown folks conversation. So with that, tonight, Thursday, August 2nd, Knowledge is Power, as you know, is always brought to you by the Committee to Develop Birmingham. And on Thursday nights, as you know, I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with the great Curtis Bell. Curtis, how are you tonight?
Oh, we're fine. We'll get closer to the mic. All's well.
All right. That's good. That's good. We've got a lot going on in Birmingham, Jefferson County, state of Alabama. And over the last few days, well, quite frankly, over a week or so now, in preparation for this program and trying to determine how best to make this program more relevant to a larger audience, it came to me that one of the arguments that I constantly make with my children who are part of this Facebook, Twitter age, this instant information age, is that while you're bombarded constantly with information, it does not come with perspective. And all too often in our community, we lack perspective. You know, we are constantly bombarded now in my generation anyway with, you know, being the first black to do this and the first black to do that and the first, and so we say that without any perspective because surely, you know, black folk had done all of the things that we're doing professionally as professionals within the black community prior to being assimilated into, as Father Alex liked to say, the dominant culture. So in thinking about that, it occurred to me while at church, one of the wisest people that I know, certainly one of the most intelligent people that I know, one of the most eloquent people that I know, a person who has meant a great deal to me over my lifetime. And I mean that literally over my lifetime. This person has meant a great deal to me. Someone who I first met when I was 5, maybe 6 years old, who made such an impression that to this day I like to call her friend, if I'm not being too presumptuous, but I've always considered her a friend, almost to the point of family, because when I first knew her, she was functioning in a capacity within the community of Westfield as an educator. And she told me once that she was responsible for me being able to write my name. And I told her, I said, well, you know, if you know where my name where my name appears these days, you might want to back that up. But anyway, this young lady, I'm trying to think of the proper adjectives to describe not only her, but what she means to me and what I want her to bring to this conversation tonight. What was it, last week that you had a birthday? Okay. Well, and this was my recognition. I'll let you say that if you choose to say so. But in recognition and appreciation of her birthday and all of the myriad of contributions that she's made to this community and to us as a people, I thought that tonight I would invite her on the show, and I said, we're just going to have a conversation. I want you to talk to our audience the way you would talk to me. I want you to give our audience the same advice that you would give to me. You know, she has been known to, if she catches you out of line or out of step, to put you in check right away. And that is something that I have always appreciated from her. So without any further ado, I want to welcome in to Knowledge is Power my first grade teacher, Mrs. Mamie Hines. Ms. Hines, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Let's put this up a little closer so that everybody gets an opportunity. Well, tell us, you know, I introduced you as my first grade teacher, and everybody out there in Dolomite anyway know that I went to school within the county system in Westfield. So give us a little background about Westfield as we get into the show.
First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me, and thank you for those very wonderful remarks that you made concerning my existence and my association with you. And hopefully other students whom I've touched through the years will feel the same way.
I'm sure that they do.
Because I have compassion for all of those whom I feel that have become a part of my life. And hopefully that with my being a part of their life, that they have gained something from me that will help them to be successful citizens in this great country of ours.
Well, you know, when I was in school, that was constantly repeated to us as the objective to make us productive, intelligent, educated citizens. Looking at education today, not just in Birmingham, but education in general, what are your thoughts on education and where it is and where it's going?
Well, during those days, our expectations were very high, and we motivated our students to reach those expectations that we had put in front of us. It was not what you cannot do. It was what you can do. And we felt that if we motivated you to that extent, that you could do the best that you could in that situation. And we always had a little saying about the little train that tried to get up the hill. I think I can, and I know I can. And then we always made learning fun. Mm-hmm. Everything was fun. And to that extent, the students were very happy as they approached the classroom, and they were happy when they left.
Well, what was the mindset of the teachers during that period? Because you know, when I came along in the early 50s, we were still colored, and there were laws on the books that restricted our access to opportunities and so forth. But yet, you as educators came to the classroom every day with a positive attitude about what we could do and not what we could not do?
We did not work in isolation with the parents of the children. We worked very well with the parents. And what was said to our students was something that the students could take back to the parents that the teachers said, and that made the parents love the teachers as well as the students.
Yeah, because there was any day that you could come home from playing and might find you or one of my other teachers at the kitchen table discussing with my parents.
That's right. Yeah. We visited the homes of the students because during those days, my students lived in the community. We did not have buses then to transport students to where they should go to learn. So we visited the homes and let the teachers know what each child was doing. First of all, it was not what they were not doing or how they acted, but what they did well in the classroom during that day. And there is a way that you need to talk to parents about students if there is some misbehavior. First of all, say what's good about that student and what the student has progressed in for that day. And then later on and say what that student has lacked as far as behavior is concerned, about how his learning has progressed, and what progress he is making in various students, in various subjects.
Let me ask you, where did you receive your undergrad and graduate education?
Well, as you know, I lived in the community of Westfield, attended all of the schools, finished Westfield High School in 1941, and that will let you know about how old I am. As Richard said about my birthday, I reached my 88th birthday on July 17th, and I'm very blessed that I'm still here.
Well,
and
congratulations.
Still
Happy birthday.
has the opportunity to speak to me, and I'm able to respond to him in an intelligent manner. But we were able to transfer our bringing up or our rearing by our parents to the students whom we taught. And that's saying a great deal, because we didn't laugh at the students. We did not allow other students to laugh at their classmates. We all laughed together.
Okay.
And that set a tone for the learning atmosphere in the classroom. I remember before school would start, children would play. And then when the bell would ring, I would stand at my door and say good morning to everybody who came through that door. And they in turn would say good morning to me. I did not allow them to speak in words, but they had to speak to me in a whole sentence. So they said I would say good morning to whomever I was speaking. And they would say good morning, Miss Himes. And that's for every student who came in. And we sang a lot. We also talked about the good things that we were going to do during that day. There were a lot of students. Now, I remember one year I had 44 students in that first grade class.
Well, now they tell you can't teach 44 students.
That's right, but you can.
Okay.
But there is classroom management that you have to do. We did group teaching. And then I had a lot of activities that they would do. When I would finish one group, they knew they would take their activity and do that in the next group until it was all done. And then sometimes I got a chance to do individualized teaching to a student who was very slow.
Well, do you get an opportunity to visit the public schools today? And is there any comparisons that you can draw?
Well, I remember when the Birmingham City School System had what they call doctor-school program. That's what they call it now. I would visit MacArthur School, which has been phased out. It was right back of Caraway Methodist Hospital. I had a schedule that I used, and I was able to read to every child in that school because I went with the schedule, and they knew what I was going to do when I got there. When I would finish one class, I would go to the next, and they would bring the children to the library for me to read to them, and I enjoyed that very much. And then when they had Honors and Awards Day, I would make presentations to the child who had read the most books in his class.
I talk with a lot of people, and I've got members of my family who were part of that transitional period where we went from what I like to call the colored school system and integrated into, I guess, the dominant culture system. And we abandoned a lot of our schools with the traditions and talking with those people who were part of that process. They all seem to have suffered some damage for having gone through that. What's your assessment of that, and how do you see it in retrospect?
Well, I admire Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, for the stand that he took for equalization of the educational system in America. It has worked to an extent, but to an extent it has not worked as well as we had hoped that it would work.
What could have been done better?
Well, I don't know, because teachers were funneled from various schools to teach in certain schools that did not have black teachers on their faculties. And then most of the black schools were phased out, and children were bused to mostly white schools because they wanted to uphold the law that had been written for equalization of education. And sometimes the black child was in the minority, and they suffered a lot of abuse from other children, and this sort of hampered their growth. But the child who was able to learn at an exceptional speed did very well, but other children got lost.
Well, I've heard some stories about kids who were at the predominantly black school who were captain of the football team, head of the cheerleading squad, president of the debate club, National Honor Society. When they got to the predominantly white schools, they were treated so poorly and not allowed to establish themselves in the positions or in the social positions that they had held at their previous schools. And I would imagine that would have a tremendous psychological effect on a child.
Well, it did. And sometimes in the extracurricular activities, they had rehearsals after school, but black children were bused into those schools, and the parents were not able to get them there. So that eliminated their participation in some of the activities that were held.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on the break, and we want to get into some modern day comparisons. We want to get your perspective, because that's what it's about tonight, listening audience. We want to sit down and have a conversation, what I like to call a brown folks conversation, and we want to do some comparisons. We all too often lack perspective. We forget from whence we've come, and a lot of our young people, particularly those who are in corporate professional positions and so forth, really have not had an opportunity to understand that you know, intelligence didn't just show up in the black community last week. That, you know, when you were a child, there were educated, intelligent black people before you, and for those folk that were educated, intelligent black people before them. And we have to, you know, to my mind anyway, get out of this thing of having integration as the measuring stick, because when we were colored, in my mind, there were an awful lot of intelligent, dignified, sophisticated grown folk that I had a great deal of respect for. And a lot of times within our communities, you know, I long for those days when you know, the teacher was highly regarded and well respected and was a professional within the community and was a role model for all kids. You know, if your parents were laborers and maids and you had a school teacher who lived in the community who was you know, well educated and who would share their experience and their education within the community, it was more of an each one teach one kind of, you know, we have a family relationship than we do today. And so when we get back, you know, we'll talk about that. I want to get your thoughts on that, and I don't want you to be bashful about saying what you think. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with the great Mamie Hines and with Curtis Bell. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night, August the 2nd, the year of our Lord, 2012. Before I go any further, Miss Mamie, I got to say happy birthday to my baby girl down in Tuscaloosa.
Tell her I said happy birthday as well.
All right, well, I'm sure she'll hear you. But anyway, Allison Finley Baxter, happy birthday. I think it's 25 now, you know, so she's getting grown. All right, we've been having just an excellent conversation with my first grade teacher. I have been extremely blessed and fortunate to have this wonderful woman in my life, most of my life. And in preparing to do the show for tonight, I was bombarded with all of the things that are going on in the bankruptcy court and how the county seems to be turning against the citizens and forcing us to pay off illegal activity, in my opinion, literally robbing the citizens of their hard-earned money to pay for and to finance criminal activity. When I think about the evil efforts that are ongoing to close down the Mercy Hospital so that those indigent care dollars might be transferred to use by people who, you know, really don't need them. When I think about the fact that the Ketona nursing home was closed down, where people who had nowhere else to go were forced into private facilities so that companies could provide more beds in Vestavia Hills and Hoover. With all of those things to talk about and all of the anger that builds up in me with the injustice and unfair practices that go on a daily basis, I thought tonight that we'd step out of that for a moment and try to put some things in perspective. And sometimes it's best to sit down with someone who's been here a minute longer than you, who has had more experience, who can probably share a perspective that presently you don't have. So I thought when I saw her at church, I said, you know, yes, Birmingham, maybe even the world needs to have a conversation with Mamie Hines. because we've strayed, we've lost our way, and maybe we needed some fundamental instruction, and I could think of no better person to have that conversation with than with Miss Mamie Hines. And so she's here, the phone lines are open, and we will appreciate your participation and conversation again with my first grade teacher. So Curtis, let's go to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Good evening, Brother Richard.
Good evening. How are you, sir? I'm
doing great. And a special good evening to Mrs. Hines. She's an inspiration. This is Horace Huntley, and as I listened to you, I thought about my first grade teacher, Miss Cannon at Riley School. And you're talking about many things so important, and discipline, of course, was one of those. As you talked about discipline, Ms. Hines, I remember a lady named Miss Boatwright, who was our disciplinarian at Riley, and I guess in the county schools. But I really appreciate the comments that you were making. You did a good job with Richard. I know it was a tough job, but it was a great job that you did with Richard. And I'd just like to ask you, to sort of reiterate to us the difference that you see now than you saw when you were in the classroom. The differences with teachers, the school itself, and particularly with parent participation.
Thank you, Mr. Dr. Huntley. When I was in the classroom, we did not have funds to buy materials with that the state allocates nowadays. We had a running account for our school's children, and we felt that the more that we gave to them, the more they would give back to us. It made us very creative because we made most of what we used, such as decoration and teaching aids, and we had our own strategies that we used in order to motivate the children to learn. But sometimes when you get a lot of stuff that you buy and put in the classroom and it stays for a year and never changes it, it does not give any meaning to the children whom you teach. So I know that we changed every month according to what we are teaching the children and what occurs during that month. We were very close to the parents of those children. Our discipline was that whenever something occurs, we change what the child is doing and suggest something else to be done in that instance. So that made a difference as well. Also, we were very, very close to the parents of those children whom we taught. Reports would go home all of the time. And a lot of times, this was the first grade class that I'm talking about. Of course, I've had experiences with all of the elementary school children. We would make little projects that the children would take home to their parents. I remember in my class, we all made little valentines that the child would take home to the parent. And on the card it would say, "I love you, and thank you for doing what you do for me." But some of that has gotten to be lost. Sometimes a child will say nowadays that if you don't get this for me, they have temper tantrums, and the parents don't know what to do with them. So a great deal has been lost during the years from the time that I was in the classroom to what is happening now.
Yes, ma'am. Just one final question. Have you considered writing anything about your experiences as a classroom teacher, educator?
Well, many of my former students have said that to me, as well as my relatives, because when I talk and tell them about some of my experiences, they say, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. But I haven't done so.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm going to encourage you to do that. Just start writing, and because it could be nothing but an inspiration to all of us, and it may get us back to some of those important values that we were raised up on. And who better to tell us about those than a person of your caliber? Thank you for being with us tonight, and I look forward to hearing you again.
Thank you, and I'll think about that seriously.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you need to get with Dr. Huntley because he's a prolific writer, and certainly he could help you with that. But, you know, listening to the conversation between you and, Dr. Huntley, I drifted back, and I want to our listening audience out there, take a moment and drift back and think about your childhood and that teacher that first caught your attention, that inspired you to want to do more, to impress, not only with your behavior but with your academic achievement, that caused you to run home and jump right into your homework and make sure that you had everything ready so that you would be one of the first to be congratulated by your teacher. And I don't know that a lot of that goes on in the public schools. I would want to believe that. I don't accept all of the negative that I hear about the public schools, but I think that if we take the time to speak to those who have been around for a while, and we can make the connect between where we are now and where we've come from, maybe we can go back and pick up some of those things that we discarded that were good and incorporate those things into our behavior and our activities today. We've got another caller on the line. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Good evening, everyone. I heard the encounter. Ms. Hines, good evening to you.
Good evening.
Let me do a little bit more praise than one of your favorite students. When you have a great teacher and a great student, they kind of raise each other. And that raising of each other seems to have continued on. Back in Miss Hines' day, they didn't have a lot of the things that we have today. In fact, I remember in the 70s still seeing bumper stickers that said Alabama needs kindergartens. The first grade classroom was really the one-room schoolhouse, Miss Hines, wasn't it?
That's
You
true.
were the first ones to teach those children, weren't you?
That is true.
And in fact, not only that, but around Thanksgiving, coming out of the sky like raindrops, a family would walk in with 2 or 3 children who had never been to school before, and the wise principal knew that he had to start them off somewhere, so he would just give you the 2 or 3 students. There was no kindergarten, there was no PE teacher, there was no music teacher. The books you had started in first grade, but in all the northern schools and all the German schools, the kindergarten schools, back in the 30s and 40s, kindergarten was required. And the reading materials you had didn't have the readiness materials which you had to develop yourself, teaching children colors and numbers and letters. And in fact, if you remember, and I'll go back and remember with you, one of the hardest things to do was about Thanksgiving when winter came on, is to start teaching children how to put on and take off their own coats. And standing there with the children who had zipped up their coats with a zipper, and the zipper came apart at the bottom. And that you had to have somebody within, and Mr. Finley probably was one of those people, you had to delegate it to one of the more sophisticated kindergarten teachers, students, to help you out to do those kinds of things. In fact, many children...
In fact, we did everything.
Yes, ma'am. And many children didn't even know they had any hands because they were wearing their brother's hand-me-down clothes with the long arms on them, and their arms were up in the sleeves, and many of them didn't even know they had hands until they were 9 years old.
And in fact, before they left the classroom, they were all buttoned up and ready to leave out into the weather.
You got that. And not only that, but you had taught brothers and sisters from the same families. And you could tell the difference as you went on in those families, that the younger brothers and sisters had learned from their brothers and sisters. And so you had a variety of children in these one-room schoolhouses. You had children who could read when they came to you, reading on a second and third grade level, and you had other children who had never had shoes on, had been walking around in diapers for 5 years. We didn't have Head Start and all these other programs. So I want to praise you for being there, Mr. Finley, but I want you to praise you for being the kind of a teacher. And if I remember correctly, back in your earliest days, the teachers that were all female were not even allowed to marry, were they?
They were not.
And so you were basically, as a nun would be in a Christian faith, you were pledged to that school and you were pledged to that family. And you showed up every day because there was no such thing as a supply teacher.
Not necessarily a nun, but we really showed
I understand, but it wasn't far away.
To the classroom.
And I'll give you one last remembrance as a praise to you because it happened to me for almost 50 years. I think one of the most wonderful compliments that can take place to a first-year teacher, whether it was a kindergarten teacher or like you, the first-grade kindergarten teacher, is that at the end of the year when you'd worked your brains out and you know that you had your children who had really, like the butterflies, taken off for the summer to go and live among the flowers, that the next school year would come by and they would see you in the hall as they walked by you wistfully on the way to their second grade class, and there was always that one or two heartbreakers who would come back to you during the first week of school, and you would say to them, well, how are you doing? And knowing that they really are doing well, and they had that kind of sad look on their face, and they would look at you wistfully, and as I say this, you'll remember the children I'm talking about, and they said, I'm doing okay, but I want to be in your class. And like me, like them, I want to be in your class, and I thank you for allowing us to be in your class today, Mr. Finley.
And that is one of the great rewards of teaching, when a child comes back and tells you that. But let me say something about the first grade during those days. There was no kindergarten. And for the first few weeks of school, we called that a readiness period, getting the children ready to do formal instruction. No readers whatsoever, but activities, knowing what's left and what's right, and how to count, and knowing the letters. And then after that period, we present the formal teaching of reading and arithmetic and what have you.
All right. Got another caller. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
How y'all doing?
All right, Joe, how are you?
Doing fine.
God bless you. And we appreciate you so much that our love is overflowing for you. Because I know what my first grade teacher went and did for me. And I remember character development. And I remember everything that she did for me back in 49, because that's when I started. And, you know, education itself, and this is my definition, and somebody wrote it for me to find it. Education is not the filling of a bucket, but the lighting of a fire. William Butler Yeats. You know, I learned that from my first grade teacher, how to pick and read and understand language. That's what you first taught me. And what's so good about it is, the African itself ain't nothing but God, love, and peace. That's in our heart. And we got this to pass on. And you mentioned the word respect. Let me tell you how to make a sandwich, and a sandwich that will live forever. You take what you would call two ends of a bread, and in between it, what you use is you use love on the first end, and then you put respect in between that bread. Mm-hmm. Then on the other end, you put love, and respect will find its way in. Now, all I could say to you is this. Thank God for you. You're going to write a book because it took me 30 years. And you'd be surprised at how you can express yourself and give something that will never die. in your words. And the best thing that I can say for you is, I'm going to give you this right here. God asked me to give you this. You must be strong now. You must never give up. And when people make you cry, and you are afraid of the dark, don't forget the light is always there. This is an old student from Urban High School by Washington, by Center Street. And thank God for all the teachers. I remember my first grade teacher, Miss Thompson. I can go on through the rest of them, but the thing about it is, y'all gave us so much love. That's the key to the whole thing, love. And when they snatch y'all away from us and run you all over the rock mountain and everywhere, and then they say you're not going to whoop my children, and then here comes the children calling the police on you talking about child abuse, one of the worst things we could ever have come upon. And we is in this drag for 50 years. We have this thing run on us for 50 years, but we going to regain what we are. God, love, and peace. God bless you.
All right,
peace.
Joe.
God bless you.
All right, Joe the Prophet.
Thank you.
All right. Another caller. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Good evening, Mr. Finley and Miss Hines.
Good evening.
I remember my first grade teacher too, but it's a blessing to hear your voice. You sound strong to be, I would say 18 years young, because you done went 18 years past a lot of time and all, but it's a good topic you're speaking about. I'd like to comment on a couple of things. You asked a question about what can we do? And Miss Hines, you spoke on when you said the Bible. That's the answer to all our problems. To go back to it, and it will show us the way how to get out lots of stuff that we are in, and all, you know, because he know the way, you know. And I can remember when I was first started at school, though. I'm going to lose some of my thoughts, though, but back me on a minute, though. But you, by writing the book, though, it'd be something nice to, because my grandfather passed, and I didn't get enough information from him. And you have seen and witnessed a lot of stuff on this earth that would shock a lot of us younger people and the younger generation down. They need to know what we came through, what you came through with in their schoolhouse, of trying to teach children and get them where they are on down the line, though. And about education, whatever happened to separate but equal? I mean, that was the main thing that when I was marching with Martin Luther King back at the time, that he mostly talked on separate but equal. And we gave up everything we had to get other people mixed with us, and we done lost more than we ever had in our life. You know, we done lost more ground. If we had our own school system, you know, and teachers teaching the right thing, and our people would be further along the way, though. But really, what happened to separate but equal in the school system?
It never occurred. It was separate but unequal.
I know I'm separate, but he preached on separate but equal. Martin King
that was a cliche that was used because
right.
in the black schools, the kids got the books that were used in white schools, and some of them were not usable.
Right.
Because they were torn up.
Right.
So we had to do with what we had. And that's why I say that there was a lot of creativity during those days. Mm-hmm. And we knew what the children needed, and we provided for them based on what we knew that they needed.
Right. That's the point I'm making. See, you answered the question. We didn't have the right books and stuff, right? So by the school being mixed up, that's shit we in today. But they had stayed the same way they were and gave us the proper books and everything we need. Because we turned out some good students was turned out back then when we was in the struggle. People graduated from school and did a whole lot of great things. But now it's on the reverse. You know, seeing that we need to have our own school system set up, whereas we can teach our own children. Who's going to teach us better than we can teach ourselves?
I don't know whether we should stray or not, but anyway, the parents had a great deal of respect for the teachers during those days.
Right.
And the teachers had a great deal of respect for the parents. And if we go back to the basic values that need to be taught in the home by the parents, then we might not have as many problems that we are experiencing now.
That's so true. I mean, it starts at home, though. It really starts at home, though, and spread from there out, though. But nice talking to you, though. But I would like to read your book because it's lots of knowledge. Let me say this. You know, the scripture speaks about as you get old. It's lots of wisdom. You got a lots of wisdom in you, and God the one put wisdom in our head, and you 80 years of age, and you living proof of it. And may God continue to bless you, though.
All right,
Thank you.
Okay, we're coming up on our final break. Curtis, we're going to try to make the break quick because I know we've got a lot of people out there who are reminded of their first educational encounter and want to share with us and want to continue to hear the words of wisdom coming from our special guests. But before we go to break, I wanted to take a moment of personal privilege and extend my sincere condolences to the family of former City Council member Bert Miller, to his daughter and his brothers and sisters. I knew Bert. I worked with Bert. Bert heart was almost as big as he was, and he had nothing but love for this community and for its people. I had spoken to him a few weeks ago. He had just written a children's book. He was always interested in young people. Yes, he had a radio program for teenagers called Off the Hook, where young kids would call in and talk about the issues of the day. He had moved to Montgomery and was continuing his work there, and I was just shocked and saddened to hear about his untimely death. So to the family again, I send out my sincere condolences, and I would ask our audience to uniformly send up a prayer for Bert. He was truly a man who loved this community. All right, we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night, August the 2nd, the year of our Lord 2012. Before I go any further, maybe I gotta say happy birthday to my baby girl down in Tuscaloosa.
Tell us happy birthday.
All right, well, I'm sure she'll be Allison Finley Baxter, happy birthday. I think it's 25 now, so she's getting that. All right, we've been having just an excellent conversation with my first grade teacher. I have been extremely blessed and fortunate to have this wonderful woman in my life, most of my life. And preparing to do the show for tonight, I was bombarded with all of the things that are going on in the bankruptcy court and how the county seems to be turning against the citizens and forcing us to pay off illegal activity, literally robbing the citizens of their hard-earned money to pay for and to fight against criminal activity. When I think about the evil efforts that are ongoing to close down the nursing hospital so that those imaging care dollars might be transferred to inspire people who really don't need them. When I think about the fact that the Kentucky nursing home was closed down, where people who had nowhere else to go were forced into private facilities so that companies could provide more beds in Destiny Hills and Hoover. With all of those things to talk about and all of the anger that builds up in me with the injustice and unfair practices that go on a daily basis, I thought tonight that we'd step out of that for a moment and try try to put some things in perspective. And sometimes it's best to sit down with someone who's been here a minute longer than you, who has had more experience, who can probably share a perspective that probably you don't have. So I thought when I saw her at church, I said, you know, maybe even the Lord needs to have a conversation with my guys, because we've strayed, we've lost our way, and maybe we needed some fundamental instruction. And I can think of no better person to have that conversation with than with Miss Mimi Hines. And so she's here, the phone lines are open, and we will appreciate your participation and conversation again with my first grade teacher. So Curtis, let's go to the phone lines. Carla, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Good evening, Brother Richard.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, and a special good evening to Ms. Hines. She's an inspiration. This is Finley, and as I listened to you, I thought about my first grade teacher, Miss Cannon, at Riley School, and you were talking about many things so important, and discipline, of course, is one of those. You talked about discipline in times. I remember a lady named Miss Boatwright, who was our disciplinarian at Riley, and I guess in the county school. But I really appreciate the comments that you were making. You did a good job with Richard. I know it was a tough job, but it was a great job that you did with Richard. And I'd just like to ask you, to sort of reiterate to us the difference that you see now than you saw when you were in the classroom. The differences with teachers, the school itself, and particularly with parent participation.
Thank you, Mr. Finley. When I was in the classroom, we did not have things to buy materials with that the state allocates nowadays. We have a one account for our schools, children, and we felt that the more that we gave to them, the more they would give back to us. It made us very creative because we made most of what we used, such as decoration and teaching aids, and we had our own strategies that we used in order to motivate the children to learn. But sometimes when you get a lot of stuff that you buy and put in the classroom and stays for a year, it never changes it. It does not give any meaning to the children on what we teach. So I know that we changed every month according to what we are teaching the children and what occurs during that month. We were very close to the parents of those children. Our discipline was that whenever something occurs, we change what the child is doing and suggest something else to be done in that instance. So that made a difference as well. Also, we were very, very close to the parents of those children who we taught. Reports would go on all of the time. And a lot of times, this was the first grade class that I'm talking about. Of course, I've had experiences with all of the elementary school children. We would make little projects that the children would take home to their parents. And I remember in my class, we all made little valentines, and the child would take home to the parent. And on the card would say, I love you, and thank you for doing what you do for me. But some of that has gotten to be lost. Sometimes a child will say nowadays that if you don't get this for me, they have temper tantrums, and the parents don't know what to do with them. So a great deal has been lost during the years from the time that I was in the classroom to what is happening now.
Yes, ma'am. Just one final question. Have you considered writing anything about your experiences as a classroom teacher, educator?
Well, many of my former students have said that to me as well as my relatives, because when I talk and tell them about some of my experiences, they say, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. But I haven't done so.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I want to encourage you to do that. Just start writing, because it could be nothing but an inspiration to all of us, and it may get us back to some of those important values that we were raised up on. And who better to tell us about those than a person of your caliber? Thank you for being with us tonight, and I look forward to hearing you again.
Thank you, and I'll think about that seriously.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we need to go to this about tonight because he's a prolific writer, and certainly to help you with that. But you know, listening to the conversation between you and Dr. Finley, I'll drift it back, and I want to our listening audience out there, take a moment and drift back and think about your childhood and what teacher that first caught your attention, that inspired you to want to do more, to impress, not with your behavior, but with your academic achievement that caused you to run home and jump right into your homework and make sure that you had everything ready so that you would be one of the first to be congratulated by your teacher. And I don't know that a lot of that goes on in the public schools. I would want to believe that. I don't accept all of the negative that I hear about the public schools, but I think that if we take the time to speak to those who have been around for a while, and we can make the connect between where we are now and where we've come from, maybe we can go back and pick up some of those things that we discarded that were good and incorporate those things into our behavior and our activities today. We've got another caller on the line. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Good evening, everyone. I heard the ringtone on the phone. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Let me do a little bit more praise than one of your favorite students. You know, when you have a great teacher and a great student, they kind of raise each other. And that raising of the things that have continued on. Back in Miss Hines' day, they didn't have a lot of the things that we have today. In fact, I remember in the 70s still seeing bumper stickers that said Alabama needs kindergartens. The first grade classroom was really the one in the schoolhouse in Miss Hines, wasn't it?
Yes,
you were the first one to teach those children, weren't you?
that is true.
And in fact, not only that, but around Thanksgiving, coming out of the sky like raindrops, a family would walk in with 2 or 3 children who had never been in school before, and the wise principal knew that he had to start them off somewhere, so he would just give you the 2 or 3 students. There was no kindergarten, there was no PE teacher, there was no music teacher. The books you had started in first grade, but in all the northern schools and all the German schools, the kindergarten schools, back in the 30s and 40s, kindergarten was required. And the reading materials you had didn't have the writing materials which you had to develop yourself, teaching children colors and numbers and letters. And in fact, if you remember, and I'll go back and remember with you, one of the hardest things to do was about Thanksgiving when winter came on, is to start teaching children how to put on and take off their own coats. who had zipped up their coats with a zipper, and the zipper came apart at the bottom. And if you had to have somebody within, and Mr. Finley probably was one of those people, you had to delegate it to one of the more sophisticated kindergarten teachers with students to help you out to do those kinds of things. In fact, many children...
In fact, we did everything.
Yes, ma'am. And many children didn't even know they had any hands because they were wearing their brothers' hand-me-down clothes with the long arms on them, and their arms were up in the sleeves, and many of them didn't even know they had hands until they were 9 years old.
And in fact, before they left the classroom, they were all buttoned up and ready to leave out into the world.
You got that? And not only that, but you had taught brothers and sisters from the same families. And you could tell the difference as you went on in those families, that the younger brothers and sisters had learned from their brothers and sisters. And so you had a variety of children in these one-room schoolhouses. You had children who could read when they came to you reading on a second and third grade level, and you had other children who had never had shoes on and been walking around in diapers for 5 years. We didn't have Head Start and all these other programs. So I want to praise you for being there, Mr. Finley, but I want to praise you for being the kind of a teacher. And if I remember correctly, back in your earliest days, the teachers that were all female were not even allowed to marry, were they?
They were not.
And so you were basically, as a nun would be in a Christian faith, you were pledged to that school, and you were pledged to that family, and you showed up every day because there wasn't such thing as a supply teacher.
Not necessarily a mean, but we were.
I understand, but it won't go away.
To the classroom.
And I'll give you one last memory as a praise to you because it happened to me for almost 50 years. I think one of the most wonderful compliments that can take place to a first-year teacher, whether it was a kindergarten teacher or like you, the first-grade kindergarten teacher, is that at the end of the year when you worked your brains out and you know that you had your children who had really, like the butterflies, taken off for the summer to go and live among the flowers, that the next school year would come by and they would see you in the hall as they walked by you wistfully on the way to the second grade class, and there was always that one or two heartbreakers who would come back to you during the first week of school, and you would say to them, well, how are you doing? And knowing that they really are doing well, and they had that kind of sad look on their face, and they would look at you wistfully, and as I say this, you'll remember the children I'm talking about, and they said, I'm doing okay, but I want to be in your class. And like me, like them, I want to be in your class, and I thank you for allowing us to be in your class today, Mr. Finley.
And that is one of the great rewards of teaching, when a child comes back and tells you that. But let me say something about the first grade during those days. That was no kindergarten. And for the first few weeks of school, we call that a readiness period. Getting the children ready to do formal instruction. No readings whatsoever, but activities, knowing what's left and what's right, and how to count, and knowing the letters. And then after that period, we present the formal teaching of reading and arithmetic and what have you.
All right. Got another caller. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
How y'all doing?
All right, Joe, how are you?
I'm fine.
God bless you. And we appreciate you so much that our love is overflowing for you. Because I know what my first grade teacher went and did for me. And I remember character development. And I remember everything that she did for me back in 49, because that's when I started. And, you know, education itself, and this is my definition, and somebody wrote it for me to sign. Education is not the filling of a bucket, but the lighting of a fire. William Butler Yeats. You know, I learned that from my first grade teacher, how to pick and read and understand language. That's what you first taught me. And what's so good about it is, the African itself ain't nothing but God, love, and peace. That's in our heart. And we got this to pass on. And you mentioned the word respect. Let me tell you how to make a sandwich. And a sandwich that will live forever. You take what you would call two ends of a bread, And in between, what you use is you use love on the first thing, and then you put respect in between that bit. Then on the other end, you put love and respect will find its way through. Now, all I can say to you is this. Thank God for you. You don't write a book because it took me 30 years. And you'd be surprised at how you can express yourself and give something that will never die in your words. And the best thing that I can say to you is, I'm going to give you this right here. God asked me to give you this. You must be strong now. You must never give up. And when people make you cry, and you are afraid of the dark, don't forget the light is always there. This is an old student from Urban High School by Washington, by Finley Street. And thank God for all the teachers. I remember my first grade teacher, Miss Thompson. I can go on through the rest of them, but the thing about it is, y'all gave us so much love. That's the key to the whole thing, love. And when they snatch y'all away from us and run you all over the mountain and everywhere, and then they say you're not going to whip my children, and then here comes the children calling the police on you, talking about child abuse, when the worst thing who could ever come upon. And we is in this jag for 50 years. We have this thing hung on us for 50 years, but we going to regain what we are. God, Lord, and peace. God bless you. God bless you.
All right, enjoy the prophet.
Thank you.
All right, another caller. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Good evening. My first grade teacher, but it's a blessing to hear your voice. It sounds strong to be I would say 18 years new, because you know 18 years past a lot of time. But it's a good topic speaking about that. I had to come in a couple of things. You asked a question about what can we do? You spoke on it, you said the Bible. That's the answer to all our problems. To go back to it and make sure that they have to get lots of stuff that we all use. Because he made a way, And I can remember when I was taught in school, though, and we listened to my pastor, but that didn't mean but by writing the book, though, there'll be some knowledge to it. Because my grandfather passed, and I've been with enough information from him. We didn't see him written for lots of stuff in the world that would shock a lot of us. Younger people, young generations down, they need to know what we can do, what you can do with them in the schoolhouse, trying to teach children, get them where they are, and down the line. And about education, whatever happened to separate but equal? That's one thing that when I was not with my big team back in the team, that we mostly talked on separate but equal. And we gave them everything we had to get other people mixed with us, and we done lost when we ever had in our lives. We done lost no ground. If we had our own school system, and teachers teaching the right thing, I think we probably learn more that really what happened to them. Something that equal in the school system.
It never occurred. It was separate but unequal.
And I'm saying that he preached on separate but equal.
That was a cliche that was used because in the black schools, the kids got the books that were used in white schools, and some of them were not usable because they were turning out. So we had to do with what we had. And that's why I say that there was a lot of creativity during those days. And we knew what the children needed, and we provided for them based on what we knew that they needed.
That's the point I'm making. See, you answer the question. We didn't have the right books and stuff, right? So by the school being mixed up, let's show you in the day. But that state Sunday well and gave us the proper books and everything because we came up from good students came out back then. We was in the struggle. People college right from school and did
now it's on the reverse. So it seems like we need to have our own school system set up, whereas we can teach our own children. You don't teach us better than we can teach ourselves.
I don't know whether we should stray or not, but anyway, the parents had a great deal of respect for the teachers during those days.
Yes.
And the teachers had a great deal of respect for the parents. And if we go back to the basic values that need to be taught in the home by the parents, then we might not have as many problems that we are experiencing now.
That's so true. She started home. We really started from home and school from there out there. But it's a nice time to go, but I would like to read your book because it's a lot of knowledge. And you said that, the strictest thing about it's lots of words. We got a lot of words in God didn't say words in how to read. And you 8 years of age and you live in proof of it. And may God continue to bless you. All right, thank you. Okay, we're coming up on our final break. Because we're going to try to make the break quick because I know we've got a lot of people out there who are reminded of their first educational encounter and want to share with us and want to continue to hear the words of wisdom coming from our special guests. But before we go to break, I wanted to take a moment of personal privilege and extend my sincere condolences to the family of former City Council member Bert Miller, to his daughter and his brothers and sisters. I knew Bert. I worked with Bert. Bert's heart was almost as big as he was, and he had nothing but love for this community and for its people. I had spoken to him a few weeks ago. He had just written a children's book. He was always interested in young people. Yes, he had a radio program for teenagers coming off the hook where young kids would call in and talk about the issues every day. He had moved to Montgomery and was continuing his work there. And I was just shocked and saddened to hear about his untimely death. So to the family again, I send out my sincere condolences. I would ask our audience to uniformly send up a prayer for Bert. He was truly a man who loved this community. All right, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
views and opinions expressed on this program by the talk show host, guests, or callers do not necessarily represent the opinion of 900 Go WATV, its sponsors, staff, management, or affiliates.
Now, back to more Knowledge is Power.
All right, welcome back. We're into our final 20 minutes. We've had just a wonderful evening visiting with the great men of Westfield, number two. I thought the elementary would be one, but the middle school was one.
Well, the structure of the schools out there, we had two elementary schools, number one and number two. But in later years, both schools went from grades 1, well, we had kindergarten, because the Tennessee Carolina Railroad Company had the best schools in the nation, as you know.
Yes.
And we had kindergarten, but most schools went from 1 through 8. In later years, the structure of the schools changed. Westfield number 2 had grades 1 through 4, and number 1 had grades 5 through 8. And the high school that was built more recently had grades 9 through 12.
I'm pretty sure that I'll tell you the story about my first real job in New York.
Yes.
Was with the Irving Trust Company. And one evening when I was staying late to do some studying so that I could catch up on the financial language that was being spoken at the bank, I was just happened to be studying in a room where they kept a lot of the customer files. And for some reason I opened the door labeled W. this file that said Westfield, Alabama. And one of the things that they said in there was when the Galbraith family was establishing the public school system, there was a competition between one of the brothers who was a socialist, who believed that if you were to put Negroes in an environment that was conducive to learning, that they could perform as well as white kids. And I tell a lot of our younger people that there was a time when they didn't believe that we were human or that we were civil enough to be able to comprehend their culture, their language, and their learning. But out of this book came the Westfield educational system, and part of the requirement of the brother who believed that in certain situations where blacks could learn as well as whites, he required that they hire the best, and this is the word that they use, the best colored teachers that they could find. And certainly in finding them hands, they found one of the best that they could find. And I want to thank you for all you did for me during my period there, not only in school, but the model that you set as a member of the community.
Well, may I say something about that community? We had everything in that community. Everything. We had athletically, tennis, baseball, stadium, like the Region Stadium in Hoover. It was built like that. We had laborers, we had social workers, and we had people to come in. We had a Christmas cantata, everything in the schools that we needed. And then when the Depression came, the schools were then given to the Jefferson County school system. And then I remember when a lot of what was left that was taken out of the schools.
It's the public discipline. But anyway, before we get back to the phone lines, and I want to say that Ms. Hand is one of our more popular guests. The phones have been buzzing all night. But we're going to go right back and we're going to take your calls, and we only have about 15 minutes left, so we want you to be brief in your statements. But also, the Olympics is going on in London, and the young lady, Gabby Douglas, has certainly made a name for herself. We learned that not only did she win a gold medal in the team competition, but she was judged the best overall gymnast in the Olympics, and she received a gold medal for that. So
we're very proud of her. Very proud of that.
We want to certainly send out congratulations to her from Knowledge is Power, and to her family who were willing to invest and sacrifice so that she might have an opportunity to live out that dream. I think there's a story there for a lot of our families in wanting to do what we can to make sure that our young people have an opportunity to follow their dreams. All right, we're back to the phone lines. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good evening, Ms. Hines.
Good evening.
And I do have a question for you. But first, let me say it's indeed an honor and a pleasure to speak with a wise person like you. It seems genuinely concerned about the welfare of our children. You know, Ms. Hines, I'm a person who believes that we should never give up on anyone, because I believe that as long as there's life, there's hope. And that any person can be saved or rehabilitated from a negative lifestyle. However, in this day and time, I believe that it's imperative that we reach children and stay connected to them, in spite of their background, before negative, self-destructive behavior influences them. Now, I heard you talk about being the influence of a stressful parent or a mentor in that child's life. And I agree 100%. You know, because I feel that all parents really want the best for their children. But a lot of them don't really understand how to do what's best for them and how to give them what's best. So with that in mind, Ms. Hines, How do you feel that we should have something like parental guidance classes one night a week at schools to teach parents how to become that good, strong parent that you're talking about? How do you feel about that? I'll listen to your response. Thank you.
That is a good idea, and I applaud the present superintendent of Buncombe City School System who has formed what he calls a parent academy. I don't know the instructions of it, but it sounds good that parents will come and something can be done toward the development of the children who are in the school system. Now, there is something that we call a PTA, and it's 100 years old. And many times when we have PTA meeting nowadays, you don't have anybody there. But I remember when I was teaching, we had a very strong PTA, and teachers had input into their meetings, and children would perform at the meetings to let them know what has been done in the classroom. So if we can get back to the old standards that we used to have, it would be a good thing. I know that parents are working more than they have been, but sometimes hours can be arranged so that the parents can get there and be a part of the school's environment.
All right. Another caller. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, good evening to you, Brother Finley and Miss Hines. It's an honor to listen to you tonight. As a sibling of an educator myself, I can firsthand tell you what teachers used to go through. I always can remember my mother getting off on Fridays and how she had to work off and on over the weekends to prepare herself to be ready for Monday with the children. And, you know, we lost that because educators of the past took these students as their children. And I can just say this one time, my mother, there was this young guy, and she taught out in the city. He didn't have shoes up, Finley. And she sent a note to his mother, asking her if it would be all right if she could buy him some shoes. See what I'm saying? The commitment that teachers had. And I can remember Miss Harris over at Riley Elementary School. And old Bert Miller, I remember he went to Riley, he went behind Miss Harris. He got a good education. But I'll say this, Miss Harris, TV and commercials have destroyed families. The power of these commercials that are on TV nowadays, they'll have you doing all kinds of crazy things. But it's up to a lot of these uncles too. I made a commitment, you know, my sisters were trying to raise two young men by themselves. And I decided I was going to step in there. And I didn't allow them to sleep late in the morning. They had to get up and do something. And Brother Finley, one of the best feelings that I got was when one of my nephews, he's a family man, I got 2 or 3 children, he told me how much he appreciated me making him a man. You know, you got these young women trying to raise these men. You can't be off on these young men. You got to make them tough because they don't have to face the responsibilities of family. And you can't raise a family being a little weak. You got to be a hard man to raise 2 or 3 children. Ain't that the truth, Brother Finley? You got to get up when you don't feel too good. Right. Sacrifice for yourself, for your children, right? So I'm calling out the uncles too now. And a father in the family, you uncles and cousins step up to the bat for your sisters and brothers. Your sisters out there trying to raise these young men.
Okay, Bob, we appreciate it. We got this.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Hey, Mr. Finley, good evening, Mr. Hines.
Good evening.
I would like to comment on some of the things that you said and Mr. Finley said. I remember earlier when you mentioned a phenomenon. You said back then we were happy, we were hip, and we were healthy. And I seen that in my lifetime. I'm not as old as you. But I think about the scholars that I read. And I think about what Mr. Finley was talking about, his corporate friends who were in corporate America. The black scholar that I read, he said despite the glitter and glitter, the easygoing life they appear to lead, it's only a mask for an unhappy existence. Happiness, I'm sorry about that helicopter, but happiness and health is very important, Ms. Hines, and I know you know that.
hear you.
I said, I know you know that happiness and health is very important. This form is very important. And I was just wondering, Mr. Finley asked you some great questions, and I thought about this from what has happened since then and now. And I think a lot of it has to do with the demands of society. When human interest take the demands of the society is more important than human interest and human development. For example, they want women in the workplace. The economy, as opposed to raising children, properly educating children properly. You talk about the village, it takes a village to raise a child. They studied us. They learned certain techniques from the British and the French. You don't have to use guns in order to manipulate people and persuade people. You use underhand methods. And see, that word educate has to do with socialize, meaning make ready for society. In a sense, society may, in the way George Clinton, society may eat us. Society uses us. But if society is supposed to serve the purpose of human beings, or we serve the purpose of society, that's a philosophical question. We need to ask ourselves, and thank you for allowing me to help out in this conversation.
All right, we got another caller. All right, caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Hey, good evening. How y'all doing?
All right, how are you?
I feel like this, man, living in the day and age that we live in the modern times, you know, I was just looking at this thing over there at that stage. So we got to invest in the interest of our children's education. When these people would come out with this latest equipment, these iPods, where a book is in the iPod and the child is reading it, and they run across a paragraph where there's a whole lot of confusing words, they can push a button on this iPod, and this iPod would actually read that paragraph to them so they can get a comprehensive value of exactly what they're digesting when they read it. Now that's modern technology, you know? That's a very effective device for teaching children how to read. So we need to invest like those things now and see what's on the market to make our children's minds more acceptable to, you know, what's going on in the world today.
But if a child can't read, the technology is no good.
Well,
the child has to know how to read in order to use the iPad.
Well, I feel like they have the capacity to learn how to do these things.
But sometimes technology needs a human being in order to make it effective.
Exactly. That's the reason I said in the classroom, the teachers were guiding them, you know, toward this direction. Now, I know a friend of mine that's a retired teacher, and her grandchild is one of the most smartest kids I've ever seen, because she takes time at least 4 days out of a week and sit down and tutor her about how to read and how to pronounce words and how to break them down into syllables and stuff. And this young child can read at a very interesting level as far as I'm concerned. So once we take interest in our children like that, you know, I think things will be okay for us, you know, and all that. And this commotion that's going on in the school, it just seems like to me that, you know, we're dead mentally because, you know, we live in a whole new day and age now. And these people are stuck back there in the past is what's going on. The fighting amongst themselves and all that old mental anguish that's going on. Then around time, I look at them and I say, that is so sad to see people that say that they are educated and they don't have the mental capacity to even comprehend that they are lost. But, you know, that's just my personal feelings about that.
Well, let me make one statement about that. Sometimes when people accept positions, they don't know what needs to be done to make their acceptance successful. As you mentioned the school board, I always say that there should be a criteria for anybody who's running for the school board before they are accepted to be a candidate, so that they will know what is required for each of them. Not to micromanage the system, but to act as board members should.
I have really enjoyed the stimulation of your conversation, but here's a question I want you to ponder over.
Okay.
Is there not a difference between the living and the dead?
But that is a part of the process.
All right. Well, we've got about 3-4 minutes left, and I want to give you the microphone. We've heard from a lot of people out in the community. We talked earlier about the things that I don't want you to shy away from, because this is an opportunity for a lot of people out there who need guidance, who need wisdom, who need to hear from someone who has no other agenda than a simple love and concern for them as a person or as a group of people. So in the next 2 or 3 minutes, why don't you just say what you have on your heart to say to all of our listening audience?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank the people who called in and expressed their opinion about things, and thank you for inviting me. This has been a marvelous experience for me, and hopefully I will be able to come back. But as far as teachers are concerned, I think that you need to have a passion for what you are doing, enjoy what you are doing. If you don't feel like it the day before for you to go back to work, I always say psych yourself up for the situation. And when you get there, try to enjoy what is ahead of you. Think positively about the situation. Have the students in your mind. Let those students be the top priority for you during the day. Try to have an establishment with the parents as well as your other co-workers, so that when there is a need for information that will help you out in your situation, you don't feel afraid to go and spell out what is being done to you and ask questions about what you can do to improve yourself. But have a passion, love it, and you will be successful. Thank you.
All right. Before we go, tell us, what's the formula? How do you live to be 88, to be healthy, to be beautiful, to be intelligent? How do you do it? And all of the chaos that is going on, you sit before us as someone who has obviously seen a lot, experienced a lot, and you find your way through. And I know that we're all envious and would love to be as fortunate as you are. So tell us, what's the secret to peace and love and life?
I don't know about all of those adjectives, but I thank God that He has blessed me to live as long as I have. I am the last liver of my family of 10 siblings and my parents in my generation. I am the matriarch of my family. They all call me Aunt Helen or Mama Helen or whatever. And I appreciate that, and I think they appreciate me. But one of my favorite mantras I have learned in my lifetime is to let go and let God, and He will handle it for me.
All right, we're going to hear on knowledge is power. Let go and let God. Nothing else I can say. We'll see you in 7. We love you. Good night. Thank you for your time. We really enjoyed it.